JT Shaver here with Neewer, and if you've been wondering why there are so many seemingly similar LED panel lights from GVM, you've come to the right place. I've bought a lot of GVM lights and they did send a couple out for free, so in this video I'll review and compare my personal favorites to hopefully help you decide what might work best for you. The first two lights are bicolor only and the remaining three have full RGB support. Even though they're both bicolor, the MB832 and the Y60D256 are probably the most different lights from each other in this video. Both have a color temperature range of 32 to 5600 Kelvin and can be powered with AC power or NPF batteries, but that's pretty much where the similarities stop. The MB832, which is 50 watts, is a traditional LED panel where all the LEDs are facing forward. The Y60D256 is a 60 watt edge-lit circular panel. That means all the LEDs are around the rim of the light and face inwards, where they bounce around and finally shoot out the front of the diffusion. With that said, the MB832 has a higher overall brightness at 2800 lux versus the Y60D256 at 680 lux. That's even though the MB832 uses 10 watts less power. If you're not familiar with comparing brightness in lux, that's 2 full stops difference, but there's a couple reasons for that. The MB832 outputs light from a 6x9 inch panel, which is around 54 square inches. The diffusion on the Y60D256 is 13 inches in diameter, so 133 square inches, meaning it's more than double the surface area. So not only is the Y60D256 a bigger light source, but it has more opaque diffusion, giving it more even lighting and softer shadows. One issue with traditional LED panels is that you'll sometimes get striped or checkered shadows, especially if you're using the barn doors. Under normal circumstances, it's usually not noticeable, especially if your lighting is stationary during your shot. And if you're using any external diffusion at all, it's a total non-issue, but if you plan to use any traditional LED panels, it's worth keeping in mind. The MB832 comes with built-in barn doors, while the Y60D256 comes with a desk-mounted light stand. This can be really useful for streaming or tabletop videos and photos, or just for an extra clean talking head setup when you don't want to have more light stands sitting on your floor. The Y60D256 is one of the most solidly built GVM lights, and it also comes in a 10-inch version in the Y30D160. The pricing I'm going to mention is full retail pricing, but check the links in the description because these lights are on sale more often than not. The bicolor MB832 comes in at $229. Since this is a bicolor only light, I think it's best suited for a rim or an accent light in traditional talking head or interview type setups. It is bright enough to use as a key light with external diffusion in a controlled environment, as long as the diffusion isn't too big and you're comfortable shooting around 1/50th of a second, f2.8, and ISO 400 to 800. The Y60D256 retails for $199, but I did recently see it on sale as low as $139, which I think is a killer deal, especially because the built-in diffusion is so good and it comes with a desk-mounted light stand. These are ideal for streamers or tabletop videos and photos, or just talking head or interview setups where you don't have a lot of space and a softbox or other diffusion would get in the way. Before I get to the RGB lights, I want to talk about color accuracy because that's where most people would think a budget brand like GVM might suffer. Surprisingly, the light quality on all their LED panels is as good or better than lights 3 to 5 times their price. Some of them do differ a bit in color temperature from what they say on the back of the screen versus higher end lights, but overall the color accuracy is very good. So instead of being 200 Kelvin off, they might be 3 or 350 Kelvin off, which really isn't a big deal in my opinion. And if you're setting your white balance before shooting properly, it's really not even an issue. If you want to see the CRI, SSI, and all the other measurements that I took, I'll have a link in the description to my light comparison tool. It uses real-world measurements instead of manufacturer-provided specs. That way you can compare lights fairly from any brand. Now, if you're looking for RGB options, my favorites are the 800, 1000, and 1200D, which are 3 lights in the same series. These lights are pretty similar in that they all offer CCT and HSI modes, but there are some important things to note. The 800D, which I actually no longer have, is from a previous generation, so although it does have mobile app support, it uses Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth. This is a little more annoying to set up because you have to actually connect your phone to the light's own Wi-Fi network to use it. The 1000 and 1200D use the new GVM 2 app, which runs on Bluetooth, so it's a lot easier to connect, and hopefully all GVM lights in the future go this route. The 1000D is 2 full stops brighter than the 800D, and the 1200D is about 1/3 stop brighter than the 1000D. That's partially because the 1000D has removable diffusion, and I measure all my lights as bare bulb as possible. On the 1200D, the diffusion is permanently built into the panel, although it is a pretty subtle diffusion. Lastly, the 800D does not have any special effects like its 2 older siblings, but the GVM special effects aren't really that useful practical anyways, so it's not really a selling point for most people. Although the 1200D shares the same naming as the 800 and 1000D, it's actually much more like the MB832 but upgraded with RGB support. And surprisingly, the 1200D is actually brighter in bicolor mode than the MB832, so it does everything that light does and more. I did keep the MB832 on this list because it really does depend on the current sale prices of each of these lights. These lights might not seem like the absolute cheapest right off the bat, but I can't stress enough how often these lights go on sale. GVM also has 2 and 3 light kits for basically every light that they have, and it can save you some money if you need things like the included light stands. The 800D is only $99, the 1000D is $169, and the 1200D is $239. I think the 800D is the best super budget RGB panel out there with a price similar to many pocket lights. It works really well for things like background or accent lighting or product shots when you want to add just a pop of color. The 1000 and 1200D are bigger and brighter, and with the GVM 2 mobile app support, they work really well for multi-light setups or bigger productions where you want to control all your lights from one place. At this point, I think GVM really has the budget LED panel category on lockdown, and for good reason. Their COB lights are a little hit and miss, but when it comes to their panel lights, they have the most important thing nailed down, which is the light quality that these things put out. To me, that's exactly what budget lights should be. That way, people that use these lights can create work that's just as good as people using more expensive lights. The barn doors on these lights are plastic, but I actually kind of like that because they're less likely to get bent or dinged up, and they are lighter weight, so they're easier to carry around. Don't get me wrong, the build quality on these lights isn't bad at all, and they're not going to break unless you're tipping your light stands over. They just don't match up to lights that are specifically designed with heavy abuse in mind. All the GVM lights also come with carrying cases, which is a nice bonus. Before you go, leave a comment and let me know which one of these lights you think might work best for you. Links are in the description if you want to check these lights out further. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.